Hey guys, it's Alex Truong, pro pickleball player, and this is the Mental Game Podcast.
Hey everyone, another episode of the Mental Game coming in hot. Sam Brief here with you in the home studio in Chicago and venturing into a new foray for this episode. We're going into the world of pickleball, something that probably a few of you know a lot about and a lot of you know very little about. It's actually the fastest growing sport in America. Everyone's investing in it, like Mark Cuban. Everyone is playing with it. Odds are you know at least someone older or younger than you, probably both, who are playing the game. And it's taking over professionally. The Association of Professional Pickleballers is the biggest pickleball league in the world. And one of its top pros right now is an 18-year-old wonder kid. And I use the word kid because she is. Her name is Alix Truong. She's already won almost 20 medals, and she's taking over the sport win by win. She was a high school tennis star in the D.C. area, and then she took a leap of faith. She said, "Hey, Mom, hey, Dad, I want to become a professional pickleball player. Not go to college, not become a doctor or a lawyer like her parents had wanted her to be, but to go make money from playing pickleball, the sport that she discovered in the middle of the COVID pandemic because there was no tennis happening, there was no school happening. She and her family picked it up, and now she's one of the top female players in the world." You'll love this episode, diving in on her mentality, her definition of success, and really the bravery that it took for her to commit to this life. So without further ado, here's the latest Mental Game podcast with Alix Truong, starting in 3, 2, 1. And next up on the Mental Game, we have 18-year-old professional pickleball stud, Alix Truong. Welcome in, Alex.
Hi, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm so excited to have you on, not only because I love pickleball, I've been to a few events, I've watched you play, and I'm enamored with it, but also because you have taken, at the age of 18, such a cool, admirable leap of faith that so few 18-year-olds would do. So I'm curious, how does it feel to be fully committed to being a professional in a sport that you didn't even know existed a few years ago?
Oh my gosh, that's a perfect way to start off this podcast, and what a great question. Um, Really, I found pickleball through COVID when the pandemic first hit. I had nothing else to do during those days at home, so I went outside and went out with my family and learned pickleball. And I had always loved the athletic field. I had played tennis, soccer, and volleyball prior to pickleball, and I loved being active, and I've always been so athletic, but I never really knew what it was like to fall in love with the sport until I found pickleball. So finding pickleball, I with COVID, online school just gave me flexibility to travel the country, and um, every event that I attended, it was just so much fun, and I just since then just love to play pickleball, and um, competing is what I love to do now.
And where you are now is a pickleball court. So you're showing
Yeah.
me, not just telling me, that you love it.
Yes. I could be out on a pickleball court drilling, practicing literally for 12 hours a day. I mean, it's just taken over my life.
And I can see the smile on your face that it's taken over your life. You know, most people talk about things that take over their lives, and they're like,
Yeah.
ugh, it's totally taken over my life. But you look delighted. And Alex, you tell me you love the sport, and you never knew what it felt like to love a sport until
Mhm.
pickleball. Now, this is after
Yeah.
playing tennis for 15 years of your life. So what was the difference between playing tennis and liking it and playing pickleball and loving it?
Maybe it was because I've always had my siblings and my dad there to play tennis with me, and we're always so competitive as a family, and there was a lot of pressure to kind of just follow direction, like a traditional direction, in my family. And so I played like junior team tennis, um, and my parents would sit on the sidelines of every single event. And if I had lost that week, it was like the end of the world. And I didn't understand why. I just, like, I had no formal training. I had no goals to um, play collegiate tennis or pro tennis, whatever it was. I just wanted to go out and be active. Then finding pickleball, I just happened to be so good at it, and nobody could really tell me what I needed to do. And I had no expectations in the beginning. So maybe less pressure really was what it was for me in the beginning to fall in love with the sport.
So you felt a ton of pressure with tennis. You did not feel that with pickleball, but now
No.
you're a pro. I mean, you're making money from it. Your livelihood is very much
Right.
tied to your success in this sport. So do you feel the same amount of pressure or still less pressure?
In some ways I do, in some ways I don't. And that comes from a lot of different perspectives, in my opinion. For me, being 18, I think the other players on tour look at me and say, oh, she's 18, she doesn't have experience. Like, she doesn't know what it's like to be under real pressure. And I agree with that. I didn't play collegiate tennis or pro tennis like my fellow competitors. And so that area is a little different. I know. So I'll go out to an event and people will say, because I don't have that experience, I can just go out and have fun and swing away and think that I'll do good. But then there's the other side of it where, because I don't have that experience, I'm like, oh shoot, like I want to actually go out and win. And so that's pressure in itself. And so I put a lot of pressure um on myself in practice and in tournaments. And I just, if people will say, oh, I play pickleball because I want to be the best that I can. But I strongly believe that if you work at something and you balance the amount of pressure that you put on yourself, that you can actually be number one, not just a top player. So that's where I kind of come from. I like having pressure, but at the same time, I know that I'm out here hitting a plastic ball for a living. So at the end of the day, I'm sitting down just thinking about what I'm doing, and it's just so much fun.
So it can't be that much pressure if you're just hitting a plastic ball for a living.
I
Sounds like you have
mean,
perspective.
it definitely is. I mean, at 18 too, I feel like I have a lot of time. So I never say, if it happens to fail, then I'll go do something else, which is totally true. I mean, I have time to do whatever I want. But it is pressure because I think a lot of other young people are coming into the sport, and I want to make my mark as soon as I can so that I'm kind of up there before everybody else is.
You're telling me that you feel pressure, but you don't feel too much pressure. And it sounds like most of the pressure, Alex, is coming from within you, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
different than in high school when your parents were the ones manufacturing that.
Yes, this is all. These are all things that I've been learning throughout this past year. I've actually started to write down notes, if, as far back as I can remember, January of this year, just learning different mental lessons. I had won my first gold medal with my partner Andre Descu in Cincinnati, Ohio, in May. And Andre, he's in his mid 30s, and he played pro tennis, I believe, and he's been on the pro pickleball tour for quite a while. So having him as a partner by my side, it was a whole new ball game. He's also European, so he has like a thick accent. So the way that he speaks, it's like you have to listen in and tone in. And so we're on the court together, and he's like, Alex, this is your moment. You go out there and you get it. And he talks to me as if there's absolutely nothing to worry about. And I just learned so much from Andre that I took that and kind of ran with it for the rest of the year mentally. I mean, the way that he speaks to himself on the court, the way that he speaks to his partners and everybody watching him, you can kind of tell that he's just so mentally strong. And so I want to continue to take that in and talk to myself in a different way and kind of just see everything that goes on and not just put the negative pressure on myself while playing.
How do you talk to yourself? Or how do you want to talk to yourself?
So I think that changes a lot. Um, if I'm playing singles, I'm really positive because I know that it's just me out there on the court. So I'll be like you got this, Al. Next ball, let's go, let's go. And I have my own saying. So I'm known for the saying "stay mean" on tour, and I write that on my wrist and with a Sharpie, and I always say it to myself before, I reset with my paddle up in front of me. I say, "Stay mean, Alex."
Why is that?
And stay mean to me means that you're in the zone. You're going to be the most aggressive person out there, and you're going to play I have a very aggressive play style compared to a lot of people. And I say, if you just go out there and you stay angry, like, you're just going to go out swinging. And so if I tell myself that, and I tell my partner, Vivian, and I that, because it's just, when you play aggressive, there's no stopping us. There really isn't.
Why mean? You're striking me as a very happy, smiling, positive person. And you're telling me that you get on the court and you're
Oh my gosh.
mean. So why?
Yeah. I don't believe in friends on the court. I'm very social. I'm a kind person, but when it comes to competing, you're out there competing for money, for a living and for a spot on the tour. So it's something that you have to take seriously. And I really take that to heart. I mean, as soon as I step onto the court, like, game on. Like, I'm not talking to you anymore. It's just me, myself, the ball, my paddle, the net, the court, and it's go time.
So you write "stay mean." I mean, I love that. This is not a game. This is life. This is a profession for you. You have to take it seriously. So why do you write "stay mean"? I'm curious what that does for you to see it on your hand.
Yeah, so when I hold my paddle up in my ready position, my left hand, it's just right in front of me. So I just happen to look right at it. And so when I physically see something, I instantly snap, and it reminds me, rather than just speaking to myself in my head. Like, sometimes I'll just say something and I'll forget right away. Whereas if it's right in front of me and it's in my peripherals while I'm watching my opponent and the ball, I really focus in on that. And I love the saying. I think it's super cute that it's written there on my arm. And like you said, I mean, I come off as more of like a happy, smiley person, but then on the court, it's completely different.
And that's hard to imagine. And I'm sure for listeners, it's hard to imagine that, hearing your voice and hearing the positive energy, like, wow, she can be vicious on the court, but it's because this is what you do for a living. So I want to get back to some of that self-talk. You're telling me that you're positive with yourself. You look at the "stay mean." What have you learned from some of the elders on the tour that inform how you talk to yourself?
I think I'm definitely one of the more emotional players on tour. I am very vocal, so if I get pumped up after a sick point, like, I'll scream, "Let's go," or "Come on." And then, when I'm kind of down and in a slump, like, kind of my body language, I get told this, my body language changes, and, maybe my shoulders are slouched, or I'm walking a little slower to recover to the baseline. So I take in tips from everybody, and you don't have to be in my position for me to listen. So a lot of the older players, they will show me by example, on the court, like, if they're down, or so I guess a good example would be if I'm starting to win, 3 to 5 points in a row, and I know that my opponents are losing. I'll look at them and see how they're reacting, whether that be body language or facial expressions. And everybody is so calm. They don't give any reactions, because that's giving up an advantage, is when somebody's reacting a certain way. So I'm trying to kind of center myself and be a little bit more calm. But at the same time, I can't lose my personality of being emotional in that aggressive and kind of exciting way after I hit a good point or anything like that. But I'm still trying to kind of find that balance, because I want to stay calm. But then when I'm calm, people think that I'm not into it, because everybody knows that when I'm loud, that's when I'm playing my best.
Right. I feel like if I see you calm on the court, I'd think, oh, she's off. She's sick. Like, something's up with Alex.
Right. And then you hear me scream from 6 courts down, and they go, "That's Alex. She's on right now."
There we go. She woke up. So what's more important to you, the process of all this or the results, which a lot of the time for you is winning?
I've learned to appreciate the process so much more this past year, especially in the last 6 months. I mean, I've had a great team beside me to help me out and really tell me to enjoy the process, even when I'm winning. Like, people put me in my place for sure. I mean, it's a brutal world out here. Um, I, I mean, results are what people see. It's what the public sees. And if I if I lose a match, you can see the score and who I lost to and follow along. And so maybe there was an X factor that somebody won't know because they weren't watching the match, and that's something that kind of bothers me, but it shouldn't. Um, like, I can't blame my partner if my partner was the one who lost the match for us, or if I happen to be sick and I lose a match. Like, nobody knows that, and I can't let people know that. So results, it's a touchy subject. But honestly, the process is, if you keep winning, maybe just one more match each week, that's still improving. And that really showed throughout this year. I mean, I did start with a silver medal in January, but then it kind of, I don't want to say it dropped, but it was slow for a while, and I felt like I wasn't improving at the rate that I should have been. Then the second half of the year started in June, and I took on a new partner, and then we kept growing from there.
You win a lot. I mean, you've won almost 20 medals as a pro, but I'm really interested in what you said about losing, because sort of what I'm hearing, you correct me if I'm wrong, it's I might look at my phone and see Alix Truong lost, but I might not know that you were really sick, or that you played the match of your life and your partner sucked, or that your opponent played the match of their life. Like, I don't know this context, so
Right.
it's almost like, hey, if we ever screw up in our lives, well, maybe there are reasons behind that and people don't know. So is that what is so frustrating to you about losing?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
and
I
no
feel
at the
that.
same time.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, it's just like, people see what they see, and I should, as an athlete, kind of block out what everybody else thinks. But at the same time, in this pickleball world, especially, we have, the Major League Pickleball drafts going on, where owners and GMs are seeing results, and only results are what they look at to draft you. And so when they can't see anything else and they just see that you lost, I mean, your chances of getting drafted drop significantly. So unfortunately, that's just how the pickleball world works, and I'm sure that's how other things in life work as well. Um, so I kind of that's just something that we all have to live with, and results matter, and I'm okay with where I'm at if I place every week.
Hear me out on this, because the pressure that you described to me about, oh, your parents getting so upset if something went wrong when you were playing tennis, it feels like that was the youth version of this pressure.
Yeah.
But the big person, the adult version, is losing thousands of dollars or getting a lower draft position for Major League Pickleball because
Absolutely.
a general manager of a team looks on their computer and sees that your results are worse. That sounds
Right.
like a lot more pressure, but you sound like you're enjoying it a lot more. So help me justify those two. How do you still enjoy it when you feel the pressure of all of that?
I really just have to remember that I'm so young and that I have so many years in front of me to keep improving. And I feel like in the sport, yes, I'm, one of the top 50 women in the game, but that can easily change to top 10 in the next few years, whatever it may be. Because I know that I'm working at it really hard. And yes, other players are too, but the community is just so small that everybody and kind of how they think and what their daily lives are. And so I hate to say it, but I know that I'm working a lot harder than a lot of these other people are. So with that in mind, if I stay consistent, like, I'll be right where I think I should be.
Well, of course you are. You're moving today, also recording a podcast with me, and look at where you are. You're on the court. You
Yeah.
just finished up a practice session, and knowing you for a little bit now, you'll probably go do a little bit more before you drive home. So you
Yeah.
clearly are putting in the work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, it's just so much fun being out here, and I guess finding something that I have a passion for makes it a lot easier. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just it's just not for fun anymore. And that's what it is. I mean, you're a professional athlete, you have to act like one, you have to train like one, and it's millions of dollars on the line now. It's no longer just going out to your local park and maybe signing up for a local tournament that wins you $100 a weekend. Like that's just not it anymore, unfortunately.
That's spending money. We're talking about life.
Yeah, exactly.
You really are so young. I mean, people tell me that. I'm 26.
Mhm.
Like, I'm still 8 years older than you. So, like, you're really young, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're 18. You'll be 19 in a little under a month. We're recording this right before Christmas at the end of December. So, knowing that you're so young, like, what does that do to your pressure? Can you ever write off things like, oh, yeah, I messed this up, but I'm young, but I'm young? Like, how do you make sure to treat yourself like the adult that you are and the pro you are?
Yeah, I never want to refer back to the fact that I'm 18 because there's a lot of different people and age is just a number on tour. You know, like my best friends right now are like in their 30s. And that's just because the pickleball community is a lot older than I don't know, like your high school tennis team. And so I think mentally in general in life, like I think like an older person. Um, and I'm more street smart than I am book smart. And so just being around people who have life experience, I'm constantly learning from them, and taking in, different advice. And so I feel like I can work my way around thinking like I'm more 25 than I am 18.
You talk like you're more 25 than 18.
Oh,
Take it as someone who was just 25.
uh-huh. I don't know. Maybe it's just the interviews.
Yeah, you're good in front of the camera, that's for sure.
Thanks.
So I want to go back to when you made the decision to go pro.
Mhm.
Because at
Yeah.
the age of 18 or 17, if we're talking last year, pretty much everyone is still beholden to their parents. It says, hey, mom, hey,
Yeah.
dad, can I do this? Can I do this? So take me to
Yeah.
the conversation where you say, hey, I'm not going to college. I'm not doing that. I'm going to become a professional player in this sport that we just all found out about. How'd that go?
You know what? It was rough. It was rough. And I tell people a lot of this often in interviews that, I was raised in a strict Asian household where grades mattered. And I was, supposed to grow up to be a doctor or a lawyer. And that's just not what the younger generation is kind of looking into anymore. I mean, things totally changed with COVID and for the better for me personally. I get to learn a new sport and go online for school. And so when COVID first hit, my high school went online. And when they decided to go back a year or two later, I declined. I wanted to stay online, not only so I could play pickleball, but I also learned better on my own time. So that just made things a lot more efficient. So I had a sit down conversation with my parents, and at the time, I was collecting a couple $100 every week, and sooner or later, hundreds turned into thousands, and it was it was very surprising the rate that pickleball was growing. Um, I started playing with my family, and so when they started to see that I was improving at a different rate and winning these different tournaments and medals every weekend, I they did see that I had a lot of potential, but they just didn't see it as a job. And so I guess it really took a lot of convincing at first. I mean, and again, it went back to results. Like if I went out to it, I had to convince them, hey, let me go to a tournament. And if I do good at this tournament, you see my results and I'm beating people every week. Like that should say something. But if I went out to a tournament and did not have good results, then back in their minds, they're like, yeah, no, that's just not working out. So I mean, I proved it. I kind of went out and tried to go out to as many professional events as I could. I think this was last year, and slowly started chipping away at results and beating the top ranked people or scoring more points than I did the last event or whatever the case was. I mean, I saw improvement and I felt improvement, and I think so did my parents. So eventually, they started to relax a little bit. I mean, my mom still wants me to go get a college degree, and I certainly want one as well. I just think now I got to take advantage of the time that I have in the sport, and I'm making enough where I can live on my own, and it's I think it's sustainable for at least right now.
You bet on yourself. Like, that's such an interesting
Oh
thing.
yeah.
Like, hey, mom, hey, dad, if I win this tournament, you got to get on board. And then you
Mhm.
showed that. What was their level of commitment the first time you brought up the idea? Like, what percentage comfortable were they with going pro?
I think the first time it would have been like they would say 75-25, but in their heads it was probably like a 10% 90 no. Um
10%.
yeah, I mean, my mom would kind of give me these sly comments of, "Oh, like remember you're still getting a college degree, remember you're still in school, like you missed this class, remember you're still, you know, in whatever." And I'm just like, I always blew that off. I really did. I've always been pretty independent too. I mean, I my family was we're close, but I'm very independent. I love alone time, so I'll just get away and do my own thing. And I think pickleball was that for a little bit, just getting to travel by myself to tournaments, financially as well. Like I've always had to pay my way to these events, and that was another thing. Like if you're paying hundreds of dollars in registrations on top of your hotel and rental car and flights, like that's a lot of money. And so if you go out to these tournaments and you're not making it back, like there's not a great chance that you're going to make it. But because I was at least breaking even in the beginning and then slowly starting to make more, it was okay for me to keep going. But it's hard because I see other people, like I'll see people every week who play and maybe they don't have the best results, and I'm like, that's like $1,000 down the drain. I don't know how that's sustainable every single week. And so I'm always super conservative about my financials, and I don't like to see that dollar amount drop. So I guess if I was losing money, I would have knocked it into myself saying like, okay, this isn't realistic anymore.
And I assume that was part of your pitch to your parents. So when you
Mm-hmm.
started on tour, like you went from, hey, I've got this idea, I want to become a
Mm-hmm.
pro, and you got to get them on board, to the first day of you as a professional pickleball player, what did that percentage look like of how on board they were?
I mean, I think after every single event, that percentage went up like barely, like 2 to 5% every week. And you know what? I'll take it. Like it's progress. Um, the very first pro event that I played, I wanted to just try it out because I don't know if you're familiar with the pickleball ratings, but it goes like 4.0, 4.5, 5.0 pro.
And
Um,
explain that for a second. I get it. I
mhm.
want to make sure my listeners understand. So give me
Yeah,
the elevator
absolutely.
pitch.
Sure. So, in amateur pickleball, the levels go up in increments of zero point 0.5. So 3.0 is basically the bottom, and it goes up to 5.0. And then once you're a 5.0, you can jump into pro events. So I started off as a 4.0 and I was winning tournaments. Then I jumped up to 4.5, started winning everything there. Then jumped up to 5.0 and started winning everything there. So that first time that I played pro women's, I went 0-2. And that was I wasn't expecting anything. I really wasn't. I was playing with a new partner, and we said let's just go out, have fun, and get experience. But knowing what that experience was after the fact, it was so much easier to just go out and slowly chip away at results each week.
How did it feel to finally start winning?
Great. I don't know if I can point out an exact moment. I guess the first year, from going from, losing every single match until winning a next one, making it to the round of 8 and 16. And then I had in May of 21 or 22, I had made the semifinals of the women's doubles bracket. And if you're semifinal, that's top four. up in the main draw. And then if you drop down, you're automatically in the top 6. So being in the top 6 of my, I don't know, I want to say like 4th or 5th pro tournament ever. I mean, that was huge. That was absolutely huge. And once you get to that point, there's no going back from it. Like it's, you know that you can compete with the top. So you just have to keep going. Like nobody's going to take that result away from you at that point.
Yeah, and you've got gold medal finishes now, singles, women's doubles, mixed doubles. What do you think now when you look back at what you've already accomplished? I mean, how pleased are you?
You know, I'm very pleased. I mean, again,
you sound
I know
moderately pleased.
I don't want to be like, oh, that's so amazing, which it is. But I just know that there's just, those are in the past, and the game is changing so much, and there's so many more events to keep playing that you can't just win one and then not back it up the next week. So even going from gold to silver in 2 weeks, like that hurts. It stings because you know that you've just won and you know you can win again. So you just got to keep working at it, really.
So at the end of the day, what does success look like?
I don't want to say being on the podium. I know that's a lame answer, but it's an expectation at this point. I don't think I've missed the podium since July of this year, and that's really it. I haven't missed the podium since July, and so I think next year it's not only making the podium, but if I was getting a ton of bronzes, now I need to go at least to silvers and then to golds and keep playing on championship Sundays, like whatever it is. I mean, the competition's just going to get harder and harder and harder. So I have to make sure that I'm doing my part to keep up. But at the same time, just remember that I'm hitting a plastic pickleball as a living.
Keep it in perspective.
Yes, absolutely.
When we think about your career as a whole, I mean, it's so hard to imagine this because you're only 18. You're at the very beginning of it. But by the end of your pickleball career, if you are successful by whatever your definition is, what do you think that looks like?
So somebody had asked me the other day, like what my New Year's resolution was. And I said, everything that I do next year, every single day, it has to be 100%. Like I need to put 100% effort into everything that I do. So I think by the time my pickleball career ends, which hopefully doesn't, I want to know that I put in all the work that I should have. Because there are people out there who are, God gifted, very talented, but not hard workers. So I think people will bet on the hard workers over the talented ones. And I use the comparison of my little brother and I every single day because I can, give him crap for that. But, he's like 6 feet tall and so athletic, but he used to not have work ethic, and I did. And so I would tell people, like, who would you bet on? And they would bet on me. And and this is what I keep telling him too, because I want him to learn from me as well as I keep guiding him in the pickleball world as well, that you've got to put in your work. So work to me right now would be, making an effort to go to the pickleball courts every single day, hitting for at least an hour, then doing my part in the gym, at least an hour workout, maybe getting 10,000 steps a day, whatever the case may be, learning something new, and, just keeping myself in check. Like I don't want to grow an ego or, be that person that people think I'm too cocky or anything like that. Like I want to stay true to my personality as a person as well as a player. And I think I'm doing a decent job of that so far as I continue to learn.
So I'm hearing success is go all out on everything, be true to who you are, and probably end up on the podium more often than not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alix, wishing you all the success in the world. It's been so great to break it down in the mental game.
Oh, thank you so much. No, thank you so much, Sam.
Back here in the studio, what a great conversation with Alix, who, I kid you not, on the day we recorded, was in the middle of moving and still made time to go practice for a few hours and then record the interview with me. How many of you on your move-in day would be practicing your sport and doing interviews? That's the kind of person Alix Truong is, and at 18 years old, clearly doing everything she can to get to the mountaintop, even if that is a moving target, as she said. So Alix is awesome. We will have more pickleball players coming up in this series. Excited to partner with the APP, the Association of Professional Pickleballers, on this, the mentality of being a part of this growing sport. As always, I'm your host, Sam Brief, here with you in Chicago, and as always, so grateful if you take the time to give me that little digital currency, a like, a subscribe, a review. All of those things go very far to help the mental game. So thank you so much for your time. Make sure to take care of yourself and others, and this has been the Mental Game Podcast. We'll see you later.